I was watching an interview Vosh did with the Young Turks, and yes, I enjoy Vosh's content. If that's too much for some of you to handle, I apologize, I guess. I don't really like his constant usage of ableist slurs, like he's still in fucking middle school, but overall, I do enjoy his stuff. Anyway, the point of the interview was to discuss how the left can better address men's issues, and how overall the left can improve when it comes to reaching out to young men. What sparked this interview in the first place was a Twitter thread Vosh posted that caused a tsunami of controversy among the online left. Here it is. Getting the feeling that some leftists are actually okay with increasing popularity of incel/neo-chauvinist ideas because it confirms their pre-existing biases against men. I do not know what else to make of the 5 million times I've seen we should do a better job of reaching out to men so they don't fall down the incel pipeline, followed by, you wanna coddle incels, rapists, you think rape is women's fault, well boo-hoo, etc., etc. It reminds me of conservatives complaining about black crime, and then when you say, hey buddy, maybe we could try, like, addressing racial inequality, they start screeching about how you wanna coddle criminals. They like the crime because it confirms their biases. Obviously, it's not fully analogous because black people are an oppressed minority and men aren't, but the reflexive desire to complain about group problems but not address them because the existence of these problems justify the complaining is analogous. It's reactionary. So that's the thread, and like I said, this caused a fucking firestorm among the online left, and I'm failing to see why. We live in a day and age where people, especially younger people, are lonelier and more depressed than ever. The American Medical Association says that 36% of all Americans, which include 61% of young adults and 51% of mothers with young children, feel serious loneliness. Additionally, the CDC found that 63% of young adults also suffer significant symptoms of anxiety or depression. Now, obviously, social isolation is not exclusively a male issue, as the AMA said, but this is one of the leading factors that drive young males to listen to scumfucks like Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate, while yes, a bullshit peddler and of course a human trafficker, promises young boys that he has the solution. Andrew Tate promises these young boys that he can make them alpha males, he can get them laid, so long as they live life the way he tells them to live life, and that includes intaking all of the hyper-misogynistic rhetoric that he spews out. He tells these boys shit like they need to suppress their emotions because that would put their masculinity on the line if they show any vulnerability whatsoever. Women are nothing more than property. And there are millions of young men out there who listen to this shit and unironically believe it. Now, hopefully within a few years' time, they'll grow out of this shit and realize how much of a bullshit artist people like Andrew Tate are. But what gets the wheels turning in the first place for Andrew Tate's bullshit peddling is socially isolated young boys, who he speaks directly to. Does the left even have an equivalent of that? Because it seems like the right has a complete monopoly when it comes to content solely dedicated to men's issues. And this is harmful because this type of content leads boys to jump to the wrong conclusions when it comes to the cause of their social isolation and their inability to find a partner. Manosphere influencers like Andrew Tate are most certainly not discussing socioeconomic issues, such as capitalism planting the seed in everyone's minds that their only worth as a human is how many hours they put into their jobs. To be a real man, you gotta be the one pulling in all of the money, working long, tiring hours at a job you may not even enjoy, and because you have those long and tiring hours, you may not have a lot of time to yourself that you could use to go out and meet someone. But never mind that, because you're living up to society's expectations. Being a real man by being completely independent and not relying on the help of anyone else. And of course, not to mention that people like Andrew Tate pollute young boys' heads with thoughts like, you don't really need to improve yourself as a person because you're entitled to sex. If a woman doesn't want to have sex with you, that's entirely on her. And this shit is popular because people like Andrew Tate know that they have to specifically reach out to boys who are socially isolated, because that is the exact type of person who is most likely to listen to shit like this, because they are desperate for social interaction, and especially a partner. And they're more likely to gravitate towards hyper-misogynist, toxically masculine figures such as Andrew Tate, because the left doesn't really make much of an attempt to appeal to this demographic of people. A lot of people seem to want the left to be this fringe, esoteric group made up of people who are anarcho-communists from the womb, and never had a problematic thought or belief in their entire fucking live. When it comes to friend groups, I understand that people can pick and choose who they want in said group, and if there is a person that wants to join your friend group, and they may have a problematic past, you have the perfect right to not associate with them. But entire political movements do not work that way. If someone was previously on the right, and they underwent genuine change in their political ideology, I see no benefit in shunning them. Because if you don't want people who have successfully unlearned, or are in the process of unlearning, harmful beliefs, how the fuck do you grow as a movement? You don't. At that point, the left is just some exclusive club where only certain people are allowed in. The right doesn't do nearly as much of this purity testing bullshit, and look how much of a stronghold it has on so many people in this country. In order for the left to grow, you need to understand that there are many people out there who, yes, hold very stupid beliefs, but can drop said stupid beliefs if reached out to. You don't need to be their best fucking friend, you don't need to hang out with them on a regular basis, but if they can at least come to understand that the left isn't about hating men, and feminism strives to tackle things such as the patriarchy that instills harmful talking points, such as the ones that people like Andrew Tate spew on a regular basis, into the minds of so many people, and help them understand how said talking points can also negatively impact men, then that can go a very long way. You're not going to deconvert every Andrew Tate supporter, of course. Some are going to be stuck in their ways forever, or others are just going to grow out of this phase naturally within the next few years. But the bottom line is, not every person who listens to people like Andrew Tate is a completely irredeemable piece of shit. Because remember, there are a lot of literal children in Andrew Tate's audience. A few months ago, I went to a party with my dad and his girlfriend, and she brought her 2 kids, and one of them was 11 years old, and he was saying shit like Top G, and he's an alpha male. That kid likely wasn't already a hyper-misogynist who wanted to seek out a content creator who reaffirmed his already existing bigotry. He most likely got into Andrew Tate because Andrew Tate appeals to that demographic of young boys. So if that boy grows up in a few years and adopts more left-wing beliefs, should we shun him out of the left because he liked Andrew Tate at the age of like 11? This purity politics shit is stupid and only hurts the left because it continues to make people be turned off by the left who would otherwise maybe adopt more left-wing values if actually reached out to. I got sucked into the anti-SJW bullshit when I was a teenager because it was constantly pounded into my head that feminism is anti-men. SJWs want to take away freedom of speech and other preposterous shit like that. Now, I was never alt-right or anything, but I was still pretty reactionary. But within a few years' time, I started watching videos made by left-wing content creators debunking a lot of the bullshit talking points that anti-SJWs would peddle. And I also began doing my own reading and realizing that the whole anti-SJW movement was bunk. And I am far from the only person who is deconverted from that bullshit. And there are people today who listen to people like Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson, all of those fucking con artists who can be deconverted if reached out to. Vosh says in another tweet, "I cannot stress enough how important it is to understand that 12-year-old white boys on Twitch are not being pulled into fascism because of some Machiavellian desire to preserve and expand their privileges. It's because the right talks to them and the left doesn't." And I think this tweet is 100% true. You don't see the left striving to reach out to young boys like the right does. I would think that saying that the left needs to do a better job of reaching out to a wider range of people would be a no-duh statement, but apparently it's a huge controversy among people on the left. And again, I fail to understand why. Look, put your feelings for Vosh aside for a moment and ask yourself this. Do you want the left to succeed? Do you want to build a movement that can effectively stamp out bigotry? If you say yes, then that involves including people who previously held problematic beliefs, or deconverting people who currently hold problematic beliefs. If you're opposed to doing these things, then congratulations, you have an echo chamber that is doomed to fail, while the right continues to radicalize everyone they can. That's all I have to say. Bye-bye.